Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was morning, and there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters, to separate water from water." So God made the expanse, and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living and moving thing with which the water teems, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. That concludes Genesis chapter 1. Today is December 21st, 2021. And I have a footnote for today's reading. And that is that sometimes we forget how old the scriptures are, the antiquity that reaches back to a time when they were written. This particular Bible that I'm reading from has a feature in it that I've always really liked, and that is that it attempts to, at the beginning of every chapter. So what Bible is this I'm reading? This is the cover of it. It's a Thompson Chain Reference Bible, New International Version. At the beginning of each chapter, I don't know if you can see it right here, it has the date, the approximate date that scholars think that this was actually occurring. In this case, it's Genesis chapter 34. And they put a question mark after it because they don't know. They're trying to be honest with you, but they're guessing that it's around 1732 BC. Later on, Leviticus chapter 27, 1491 BC. So anyway, it's a pretty cool feature of the Bible. And in looking back at the scripture, we do know that some of the things that are recorded are thousands of years old and go back to a time when there was not even a standard date that was shared among humanity. There wasn't a dating convention, so that's why they would say it was this 23rd year of the reign of whatever person, that sort of thing, because there was no centrally fixed universal point around which humanity shared a common date structure. That these words that we are reading are very, very old, and they have been preserved remarkably across centuries and centuries of time, even through periods of time when very powerful forces tried to destroy these words, tried to blot them out from all of human consciousness and awareness. But they have survived, and they are truly ancient. So when you think back, and you think of some really old picture you've seen, old black and white picture maybe of the Civil War or something, or of your great-great-great-great-grandparents or whatever, and you think, man, that's really old. Or you think back further and you think, oh, the days of Chaucer, or the days of King Arthur, or the medieval times when there were peasants and serfs, and the old kingdoms. To get really far back, you have to go way back before Shakespeare, way back before Charlemagne. And those are, of course, Western points of historical context, but you have to go way, way back to get to the point where you are, where these words were actually recorded. And it was so difficult to record words like this at that time. It was so hard to gather the materials to do it, to have the knowledge to do it, to devote the resources to doing it. Imagine if paper costs 50% of your income, and the marking system for the paper costs another 10% of your income, or if that you were going to put something on a clay tablet required you to take hours and hours to do. The costs for producing these texts in ancient times were very, very high. And so these are just things to remember. Even though we have this particular Bible, which was given to me by my Marines back in 2009, roughly, or 2010. Even though we have this Bible, which this one was, this edition is from it's a 2005 edition. It's capturing something that's very, very old, and very, very complex, and from across different strata of history over a huge period of time. It's not like the Bible was written 100 years ago, or even though this was printed and compiled, that the Bible was written 500 years ago, or that there were parts of it that were written even 1,000 years ago. When you read any part of the Bible, there's no part of the Bible that's less than, I don't know, let's say we have scripts from 200 or 300 AD. There's no part of the Bible that's less than 1,800, 1,700 years or 1,800 years old. It's phenomenal to me and amazing to me that we can read across all that time and all those cultural changes. We can read stories that actually make sense. We can read prose and stories and poems, and we can connect with the people here, which probably speaks to something that many people, I'm sure, have noted before, and that is that there is truly a connection, a thread of connection that goes all the way back to the earliest humans for all of us. And the Bible is one remarkable way, even if you're not a person of faith, it is one remarkable way of going back and noting the aspects of human nature and the centrality of things that are true, what other people may have referred to as the natural law, or what C.S. Lewis called the Tao and the abolition of man, that there's a common thread. It's probably worth dwelling on that. It's probably worth trying to discover what that is. It's probably worth discovering what that is because we have it in common. And that's probably one of the keys for us all being able to live in peace with each other, is to know the common threads of our own humanity. And from my Christian worldview perspective, that thread of commonality was built in by God, which I didn't really intend for this to make a whole circle, but it goes back to, all the way back to the passage that I read a few minutes ago. God created man, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And so that as a Christian, believing that God is eternal and unchanging, he created the essence of man to be an unchanging thing, and a thing that would not change over time. And so built in the ability for us to, through love and through a redemptive and reconciliation, process of reconciliatory love and forgiveness, we're able to know each other and love each other and live together in happiness and with meaning. So that's a lot to hang on this, but thank you for joining me.